Israel has launched fresh attacks in the last few hours as the war with Iran and its supporters shows no signs of letting up. Several people are reported to have been killed in Lebanon on Wednesday as Israel targets the offices of Hezbollah in Beirut. The organisation is a key ally of Tehran and has sent rockets into Israel.
Listen carefully, because what happened in the last few hours might change the entire Middle East. Not next year, not next month, tonight. Missiles over Doha, drones over Dubai, explosions in Tehran. And somewhere in the middle of all this, one terrifying question is hanging in the air. Are we watching the beginning of a regional war or the opening chapter of something much bigger? Because Israel says it has just struck major security headquarters inside Tehran, not random buildings, not symbolic targets, command centers, the nerve system of Iran's government. At the same time, Iran fired missiles and drones across the Gulf, hitting or attempting to hit U.S. facilities in Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. And suddenly, the quiet assumption everyone had been hoping for, that this conflict would stay contained, well, that assumption just exploded, literally. Now picture the scene. It's early morning in Tehran, the city wakes up, but instead of traffic noise, there are air raid sirens. Then explosions. Israeli jets and missiles strike multiple locations tied to Iran's security leadership, including government command structures and national security buildings. These are not random military warehouses. These are the rooms where decisions are made, the rooms where wars are planned. And Israel says those rooms were hit hard. But here's where the story gets even more dramatic, because Iran didn't wait long to respond. Not days, not even hours. Within a short time, drones and missiles were launched across the Persian Gulf. Targets included U.S. diplomatic and military locations, including near the American consulate in Dubai, where a drone strike sparked a fire in a parking area. No casualties reported there, thankfully. But the message? Oh, the message was loud, very loud. And if you're wondering why this moment is so dangerous, you have to rewind the clock just a few days. Because this didn't start with tonight's explosions. It started with something even more shocking, the killing of Iran's supreme leader. Yes, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the most powerful man in Iran for decades, was killed during earlier strikes carried out by Israel with US support. Think about that for a second. In geopolitics, assassinating the top leader of a country is not a small move. It's not even a big move. It's the kind of move that can shake the entire international system. And now, Iran is fighting back, across multiple countries, across multiple fronts. The conflict is no longer contained to Israel and Iran. Look at the map. Qatar, Dubai, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, even shipping routes in the Persian Gulf are now on high alert. Iran has launched hundreds of missiles and thousands of drones targeting US bases and allies across the region. That's not a symbolic response. That's a military campaign. And suddenly, the Gulf, one of the most important energy corridors on Earth, is becoming a battlefield. Oil traders are watching nervously. Airlines are rerouting flights. Insurance companies are quietly raising premiums. Because when missiles start flying over the Persian Gulf, the entire world economy pays attention, even if you're sitting thousands of miles away. But let's pause for a moment, because behind the headlines, there's a deeper story unfolding, a strategic chess match. And right now, everyone is trying to figure out the same thing. How far is each side willing to go? Israel clearly believes this is the moment to strike. After years of warnings about Iran's missile programs, nuclear ambitions, and regional influence, Israel appears to be trying something bold. Cripple the command structure, decapitate leadership, break the system before it can regroup. That's why the targets inside Tehran are so significant. Security headquarters, government command centers, leadership networks, you don't hit those unless you're aiming to disrupt the brain of the state. But Iran's strategy looks different. Iran knows it cannot match Israel and the United States in traditional air power. Its air force is limited, its jets are older, so Iran plays a different game. Missiles, drones, lots of them, cheap, mass-produced, and fired in overwhelming waves. Military analysts call it a salvo strategy. In simple terms, you fire so many weapons that even advanced defense systems struggle to stop them all. And right now, That strategy is exactly what Iran is doing. Experts say the outcome of this war could come down to something surprisingly simple: who runs out of missiles first, or who runs out of interceptors first. Because every missile that gets shot down costs money. A lot of money. Sometimes 5 times more than the missile itself. War, unfortunately, is also math. But the numbers don't capture something else happening. Fear. Real fear. In cities across the Gulf. Imagine living in Dubai. You're at dinner, maybe celebrating a birthday. Then suddenly, alarms, sirens, air defense systems firing into the sky, people looking up, trying to understand what's happening. Was that a missile? Was that debris? Should we run? Those moments, those seconds of confusion, that's what modern war looks like. Not just soldiers on battlefields, but civilians watching the sky, hoping nothing falls from it. And here's where the situation gets complicated, because this war is not just about Israel and Iran. The United States is deeply involved. American bases across the Gulf are part of the military network responding to the crisis. And when those bases get hit, even symbolically, it raises a serious question. Will the United States escalate further or try to contain the conflict? President Donald Trump has already indicated that military operations could continue for weeks if necessary. That statement alone sends signals across the world, to allies, to rivals, to markets, and to Tehran. But Tehran also wants to send its own message. Iran is essentially saying, you may strike our leaders, but we can strike your network. Not necessarily Washington, but the infrastructure, bases, embassies, regional partners. And when attacks begin stretching from Israel to Qatar to the UAE, it becomes clear that this conflict is spreading faster than many expected. And here's something that should worry everyone watching. Wars rarely go according to plan. History shows this again and again. Leaders think they can control escalation, they believe they can calibrate responses, but once missiles start flying, events take on their own momentum. Unexpected incidents happen, misidentifications, technical failures, human mistakes. Sometimes wars expand not because leaders want them to, but because they can't stop them. Right now, think of it like this. If Israel is trying to strike the head of the system, Iran is trying to stretch the battlefield, make the cost of war feel bigger, wider, more complicated, and suddenly, countries that were watching from the sidelines begin to feel the tension. Because when missiles cross borders, even if they miss their intended targets, they send a political message. No one in the region is completely safe from the fallout. But here's where the story becomes even more interesting. Because while the military exchanges grab the headlines, something else is happening quietly inside Iran itself. Something far more complicated. Leadership, power, control. Remember, the earlier strike that reportedly killed Iran's supreme leader created something that rarely happens inside tightly controlled political systems, a power vacuum. And power vacuums are messy, very messy. Inside Tehran right now, different factions are trying to figure out who truly holds authority. The clerical leadership, the Revolutionary Guard, political elites. Each group has influence, each group has its own priorities, and each group understands that whoever emerges strongest from this crisis could shape Iran's future for decades. So while missiles are flying outside the country, inside the country, another battle is quietly unfolding. A battle over power, over direction, over survival, and history tells us something important about moments like this. When leadership structures are under pressure, governments often respond in one of two ways. They either try to calm the situation, stabilize things, or they double down, show strength, demonstrate defiance, and rally the population around national resistance. Right now, Iran appears to be choosing the second option. Because the leadership understands something fundamental. In moments of crisis, national unity becomes a powerful political force. External threats often push populations to rally behind their government, even when there are internal disagreements. It's an old pattern, one that has appeared many times in history. And Iranian leaders know it well. So while missiles are being launched toward regional targets, inside Iran, the message is being framed differently. Not as aggression, but as resistance, as defense, as survival. Now let's turn back to Israel for a moment. Because Israel's strategy is also evolving. For years, Israeli leaders warned that Iran's military infrastructure posed a long-term threat. Missile development, drone capabilities, regional proxy networks, and Israel believed that if conflict ever became unavoidable, it would need to act quickly, decisively, and target the core structures supporting those capabilities. Which brings us back to those strikes in Tehran. Security headquarters, command structures, leadership facilities, those targets are not chosen randomly. They are chosen because they disrupt coordination, communication, decision-making. In other words, they slow the opponent down. But there's another layer to Israel's approach: psychology. Military operations are not just about destroying equipment. They are about influencing the mindset of the opponent, creating uncertainty, making leaders question their security, their control, their next move. And when strikes reach deep inside a capital city, that psychological impact can be enormous, because suddenly, the war is not far away. It's right outside your door. Now here's a question many people are asking tonight. Why are American sites being targeted? The answer is complicated, but logical. Iran sees the United States as deeply connected to Israel's military operations, politically, strategically, militarily. So by targeting the US-linked locations in the region, Iran is sending a layered message. First, it shows capability. Second, it applies pressure. And third, it raises the stakes. Because once American installations are involved, the possibility of broader escalation grows. And Iran knows that. But the United States also knows something else. Direct escalation carries enormous risk, not just militarily, but globally. Another major conflict in the Middle East would stretch military resources, disrupt global markets, and potentially draw in other powers, which is why Washington's response so far appears cautious, firm, but measured. Defensive systems activated, regional bases on alert, diplomatic channels quietly work behind the scenes, trying to manage the situation before it crosses a point of no return. Right now, the Middle East is standing in that tense space between escalation and restraint. Both sides have demonstrated capability. Both sides have delivered powerful signals. But neither side has fully committed to the kind of overwhelming response that would turn this into an all-out regional war. At least, not yet. Now let's talk about something else. Something that doesn't get enough attention during wars. Fatigue. Not military fatigue. Human fatigue. People living under the shadow of conflict. In Tehran tonight, families are listening to distant explosions, checking their phones, refreshing news apps, trying to figure out what's happening. In Tel Aviv, people are watching defense systems intercept incoming threats. In Dubai, residents are wondering whether the city they thought was far from war is suddenly part of it. And in Qatar, near American bases, communities are adjusting to a new reality. Air defenses, military patrols, heightened security. War has a way of creeping into daily life, slowly, then all at once. But perhaps the most unpredictable part of this entire situation is leadership, because wars are shaped by decisions made by a very small number of people, sometimes just a handful: presidents, prime ministers, military commanders, advisors, each one weighing risks, each one calculating the next move. And history has shown us something fascinating. Sometimes wars escalate not because leaders want them to, but because backing down becomes politically impossible. Imagine being a leader during a moment like this. Your country has been attacked. Your population is watching. Your allies are watching. Your rivals are watching. Every move sends a signal: strength, weakness, resolve, fear, and the pressure to respond, to show strength, can push conflicts further than anyone originally intended. That is why the next phase of this conflict will be so critical. If diplomacy begins to quietly reappear, if back-channel talks start happening, if both sides begin looking for a way to step back, then perhaps the worst can still be avoided. But if the cycle of retaliation continues, strike after strike, missile after missile, then the risk grows. And history reminds us, regional wars rarely stay regional forever. And yet, amid all the tension, there is still uncertainty, because no one knows exactly what Iran's next move will be. Will Tehran escalate further against US targets? Will Israel launch even deeper strikes inside Iran? Will regional militias become involved? Or will international pressure finally begin pushing everyone toward the negotiating table? At this moment, the answers are not clear, and sometimes that uncertainty is the most dangerous factor of all, because uncertainty makes every decision feel urgent, every reaction feel necessary, every escalation feels justified. But one thing is absolutely certain. The Middle East has entered a new phase. A phase where direct confrontation between major powers is no longer unthinkable. A phase where advanced weapons, drones, missiles, cyber operations all collide in the same conflict. And a phase where the consequences could reach far beyond the region itself, from oil markets to global security alliances to the balance of power between world powers. What happens next will shape international politics for years to come. And right now, the world is waiting, watching, listening for the next siren, the next strike, the next decision, because in moments like this, history can turn very quickly, sometimes overnight. But now, I want to hear from you. What do you think happens next? Do you believe this conflict will calm down, or are we witnessing the beginning of something much larger? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you found this analysis helpful, make sure to support the channel by liking this video. Also subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next update as this story continues to unfold, because the world is changing fast, and we'll be here to break it down together.